Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Rebuild It. We are going to try to get the Corvette back together this week all the way. We'll see if we can get it done. So we'll be a little bit closer to spanking Andy with his little 2013 Mustang. So let's see what we can get done this week. Well, about the only thing I've got left to do to this thing before I get the panels back from Mike is to do a kind of a buff on this thing. It's got, where all the adhesive was on, I had to rub off, and it just kind of needs some TLC. So I'm going to tape this thing up, probably run a tape line along this, and just put plastic over the interior and the engine and everything so I don't sling stuff everywhere on it. And just try to get this top part especially buffed out. Remember, here is where it was, I don't know if you can see it, where the numbers were. Yeah, there's a 9. So hopefully I can get all that buffed out. But I want to tape up everywhere, like there's a seam here where rubbing compound can get shoved up underneath there and it's really hard to get out. Okay, so I've been buffing for quite a while, and one thing I remembered that I usually do, and I forgot about this time, was I usually clay bar these things before I buff them. I haven't done anything on this side of the hood, or the trunk over here at all. This side I buffed with the white pad, which is like a rubbing compound, so it's the most aggressive one. And I buffed quite a while. And so I went ahead and sprayed it down with detailing spray and got my clay bar out. And one pass over it, look at all the contaminants coming up.
Wow.
Off of that. That's after a buff with the most aggressive pad. So the clay bar does do quite a bit to get you kind of a head start on your buff job. So I'm going to keep doing this until you just do it until you don't feel any drag on your clay bar. If you've got good enough lubrication on there with your detail spray. Once you don't feel drag, then you just wipe this off. Remember this, as I said, just after the first go around with the aggressive buffer. So I still have to do the finer stuff. Then you can really feel, like I always do it at the back of my hand because it's the roughest. Like you can listen to this over here. Hear that drag on there? You come over here to where I just clay barred. I mean, there's like nothing. So when I go back through, you can see it's kind of a hazy thing because I haven't buffed it again yet. But once I buff that out, man, that should really be slick. You don't feel anything on there. So I'll go ahead and do the rest of this with the clay bar. Okay, so you can see what I did. I just did this little area right here, which is like 1 foot by 2 foot. And there's our clay.
Gross.
All right, so I've been buffing a while. I ended up taking the little satellite radio antenna off so I could not have a line there. But look at the difference between, I haven't done anything to this yet, and this is buffed out. Quite a big difference. So I'm hoping to make this bumper Look as good. Okay, so I'm going to take a break a little bit from the buffing. I just heard from Mike, and he said he's going to have the body panels that he's got painted by this weekend. So that is awesome news, which means, though, I need to be working on these headlights because it's a lot easier to put this thing back together when you can bolt the headlights in first and then lay the fender on top of them. It's just easier to put it back together that way. And you can get all your gaps right. But before we do that, we have to change out the lenses on these things. And if you guys remember, we did this exact same thing on the ZR1, only in white instead of black headlights. GM had just bad headlights on these C6. The lenses were just terrible. I don't know if you can see how bad that is. Just the regular sun, just sitting out in normal use. I mean, they just, remember on the ZR1, it was a 2010 and it only had 15,000 miles on it or something. I don't even know if it had that many. I can't remember. But they were already starting to get this cracking and checking in them. And that thing probably hadn't been out in the sun hardly at all. So, and this is one, so this is the one that was on the car. This is the one I bought on eBay. Somebody had blacked it out. But it was hard to find a 2005 one. I think 2006 was the same way, but the ballast is what's under here, and the ballast was different on the later headlights, I think after 2006. And another thing that's different is these screws, 1, 2, 3. They're different. They're an actual screw that goes in on these, where the other one was a nut on top of a stud. Last time we did this, this was the only part that we worried about breaking something. When you take those out, there is you can't see it, but there's like a female stud on the inside of that that's plastic and it's very brittle. And so when you try taking that, even the nut off of the other one, it would break that inside stud. So I don't know if these older ones are the same way. I guess we'll see, but we're going to really try to be careful getting these 3 screws out, and that's what breaks. And then take we'll get this little gasket off. I've got new lenses and gaskets ordered. And then we have to heat around the outside edge of this thing with a heat gun and try to get this sealant to release this lens, and we'll pry it off. And I remember the last time that took forever, and then trying to clean that old sealant off took forever last time. So I'm not going to show you the whole long process, but I might give you some updates as I go through this. But I think last time I only had to do 1, and this time we got to do 2, and it took hours for each one. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so there it is with the lens off, and that took probably, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes of heating to get it to release. There's the seal around there. And you just have to be careful when you are pulling. You want to pull evenly around all of it. You want to try to get it to all come off without like really pulling on the lens one direction, or you'll crack stuff. But that looks surprisingly clean in there. So now what I do is take these screws here off, and that'll release the black area from the lens. And then when the new lens comes in, I'll just screw it back to the new one. And the hardest part is going to be getting all this seal out. Remember last time, that's what took forever, but you got to keep heating it, and it's kind of it's flexible, but just trying to get it to stay together and not just come apart in a million pieces is what's hard. But use heat and patience. Okay, so I'm finding out that getting this sealant off is easier cold. Okay, once I got it started, it sticks together a little bit better and is able to be pulled out cold better than hot. If you get it hot, it wants to stretch and break. So I've got this sealer all around the edge off of this one. It wasn't too bad. And now I'm going to start on this one, taking it apart, because I'm still waiting on the lenses to come in, so I might as well have them all apart ready. And I did put this on this is the one from eBay. I did put it on the Corvette and tested it. It did work. So everything's good with that. So I'll start tearing it apart. Just a little update on the Vette while I'm waiting on the headlight lenses. I got back to the buffing. So I've got this side all buffed out.
Wow.
And the top, the deck lid and the cover of the convertible top is all buffed and all clay barred everything first, and then I've buffed it. I'm happy with it. It looks, the shine really came out on it. I mean, it's really a deep shine. And I got the top of this back here. You remember that was all scratched up. It looks like a really deep shine now. Have not done anything to this side of the bumper, or I haven't done anything to this side of the car, but I'm just working as I go. Well, guess what came in? Our new lenses. It's got a protective film over it, so you see all these wrinkles, but man, those are so clean and clear. Big time difference compared to these. So those are trash. So I'll shine that up, make sure it's good and clean, and mount that into the inside of this new lens. And then we'll make sure everything fits right. And then we'll use our window weld. Same thing we used on the ZR1. And I'll have about 10 pairs of gloves ready because that stuff gets everywhere. And then we'll just fill this little trough around with our window weld, get it in there and tape it all down so that it dries overnight. So here is the other items that we got back. Bodyman Mike's got all this stuff painted and looking really nice. It's dusty, but looks really good. So as soon as I get the headlight back together and cured, then we'll start putting all this back together. All right, so I've got one lens on. I've got it all sealed and pressed down in there really good and hard and taped closed. So I will let that sit for probably 24 hours. And by tomorrow night, it ought to be ready to install. All right, so there's the other one. And while I'm waiting on those to dry, I'm going to go ahead and put some fenders on loosely just to get them out of the floor of the basement. Make sure nothing gets broken. Go ahead and cut all these zip ties off, get our wires down underneath where they go, and we'll just stick those on real quick. All right, so I've got that just loosely bolted on there. And man, look at that color match. I mean, it is exact. All right, it's the next day. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel this tape off and get this film off of the lens, and we'll check it out and see what it looks like. Okay, so there it is. It's brand new. We've got those gaskets that go around the outside, so I'll go ahead and find that, get it put on, and do the other one, and then we'll get this stuff installed. All right, so that's what it looks like back in the car. I've got the gasket put back on there, and that's how it sits in there. So just have to do a little adjusting as we get everything bolted back in. But man, that looks better than those old roughed up, faded out lenses. Okay, so here we are with both of them installed just loosely. So still a lot of adjustment to do on them and stuff. But before I can start putting the bumper back together, getting all the lights and grills and all that stuff installed on it, I need to do something to these fog lights. So I've got two fog lights that came with the replacement bumper, and then one that was still good that was on the smashed bumper. The other side was really scratched up really deep and bad, so it's useless. And then I've also got 3 Solstice headlights that I need to do for another project I'm working on that you guys don't know about yet. And so if you guys have not checked out our tutorial video on how to restore headlights with sanding them down and clear coating them, Andy's going to put a link on here right now. I'm going to just kind of show you as I do this, the different stages, and not show the whole process, but hopefully we get some good results. Okay, so I have sanded and sanded and sanded all these headlights I went to 600 grit dry, and then I sanded them all with 800 grit wet. And this is what you want, a real nice, like hazy, frosted looking color to them all. And this one, I think it was this one, Solstice headlight, was so yellowed and nasty from the sun. I can't believe it all came out. So when we clear coat, it should really look a million times better. And then the ones that we're really trying to do is these Corvette ones that are the fog lights. And I'm not sure if this one is going to work, because I think all this stuff in here is on the inside of the lens. We'll go ahead and clear coat it just to see what it does, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up having to use these two back here because they cleaned up really well. Next step is to clean them up really good, and I use this glass cleaner because it doesn't react with plastic. So we'll clean them all really good, and then we'll tape up the parts we don't want clear coat getting on, and we'll spray them. Okay, so everything is nice and clean, and I've got whatever taped up I don't want to get any clear coat on. So let's spray them. The other thing I forgot to show you is the paint I'm using is this Clear Coat Spray Max. It's a 2K paint, so it's not just like what you get off of the store at O'Reilly's off the shelf. It's got the hardener inside there, but you have to shake it up for 2 minutes, pop the top off, and then inside the top there's this little thing that you take out of there and put on the bottom, and then you push that in and it punctures the hardener inside. You shake it all up, and then you've got 2K paint just like you would spray out of your spray gun doing a car. Okay, so here's our Solstice headlights after they got the clear coat on them. And I don't know if you can see, not in here, there's some little, we had this problem with our, when we did the crossfire. I don't know if it's little stress cracks in the plastic or what, but once you clear coat it, you can really see those little things. And what I did last time was I wet sanded it again after they dried overnight with some 800 again, and then I re-cleared it again, and it completely made them disappear. So I want to try that on those. I got the same thing on one of the Corvette fog lights. You can see it right there. This one doesn't have it, but it does have some little dust nibs in it. So I'm just going to sand those with some 800 wet again and do it tomorrow. But so while I'm waiting on the headlights to dry, I went ahead and brought the bumper out, and I'm going to start working on getting it all reassembled. And here's all the pieces and parts that go to it. And this one, so I've washed them, that's why they're wet. I'm gonna clean them up some more and put some spray on there to make them look good and shiny and black, and then we'll start piecing this thing together. Okay, so I've got our grill installed and these little side markers, and there's nothing really else I can do with this until I get the fog lights in. I can't install the bumper until those get put in, or I can, but it would be a lot easier to do it with that out.
Well guys, thanks so much for watching this week's episode of Rebuild It. If you liked it, make sure to hit the like button down below, and then hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell so you make sure to get notifications for all future videos that we post. And next week, I think that what Dad's going to try to get done is he's going to get the painted hood on the car, get it aligned, get those fog lights that you saw him restore in this week's episode, get those finished up and put on the bumper, and get the bumper installed, and maybe, if we're lucky, if we can get everything done in time, it'll go for the first drive. So catch you guys next time. And always remember, don't retire it if you can rebuild it. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in and watching this week's episode of Rebuild It. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any awesome content. Have a good one.